everybody, I'm Liz, this is French Toast and Books, and today we are talking about March releases. That's right, February is coming to a close already, which every month seems like too fast and too slow all at the same time, and February being the shortest month is no exception. So March, I have a whopping 23 books that I'm excited for, to find more about, to look at reviews, to anticipate, and to revel in all of the things with my fellow book community. So we'll get down to it. I'm basing this off of Goodreads release dates, so as long as they haven't changed, these are the books set to release in March. 8 of these 23 books are set to release on March 1st. March 1st is a huge publishing day, y'all. Like, it's insane, and there's some great books on there. First, we're going to go with Sisters of Night and Fog, a World War II novel by Erica Roebuck. This book follows 2 different women during World War II, and one decides to stay in the occupied France with her French husband. Her name's Virginia, and she's determined to make it through the war and live while staying in France. And then we have also 19-year-old Violet, who tries to basically get recruited by like French military, I believe, and they both have their lives come crashing and hurling together when they end up getting brought to Ravensbrück concentration camp. Then we have The Night Shift by Alex Finley. This book sounds really, really interesting. We have 2 different time periods. We have New Year's Eve in 1999 with the pressure and the fear of Y2K happening. We have 4 teenage girls working in a Blockbuster in Linden, New Jersey, and they are attacked that night and only one survives. And then 15 years later, in the same town, 4 teenage employees are working the late night shift at an ice cream store, and they are attacked, and again, only one survives. So it's a very whirlwind of a story where both surviving victims are recalling the killer, and all the lives are intersecting to try to find this killer at large. Next, we have This Golden State by Merritt Weisberg. This book takes place with the Winslow family, and their history, their name, all of that is shrouded in mystery. They have 5 principles surrounding basically nobody outside the family can know your real name, know who you are. You can't stay in one place for too long. And basically keep your family together, your family's everything, and don't ask about the family history or who we are. And Poppy is a part of the family. She doesn't understand why they're running. She wants to have that closure of who she is, so she ends up mailing a DNA test, and she gets the results, and it throws her into a whirlwind of a ride. We have Edgewood by Kristen Cicerelli, and this book sounds so good. I would not have known about this story until Bethany from Beautiful Bookish Bethany would have brought this about and put it on my radar. I had not heard about it, and then since then I've seen other bookish creators popping up with this story, and I'm excited. This book has a haunted wood story plotline. Our main character, Emmeline Clark, is trying to save her grandfather after he disappears, which throws her into entering this forbidden wood. And being in this forest, she finds herself drawn to the fabled Wood King. She makes a shoddy deal with him for her voice for her grandfather's freedom, and it opens up a whole other can of worms. Next, we have 1,000 Steps into the Night by Tracy Chee. I am so thrilled for this fantasy novel. I read Tracy Chee's first fantasy novel series a while back called The Reader, and I absolutely loved it. So seeing her make this next fantasy story gets me so pumped. This story weaves Japanese influence with fantasy, demons, adventure, and plans gone awry. Our realm here is called Awara, and there's gods, monsters, and humans existing side by side. Our main character, Miyuko, is ordinary, and she works in her family's inn. However, she becomes cursed and is slowly transformed into a demon with deadly touch, so she embarks on a quest and a journey to reverse the curse and go back to normal. Then we have The Lost Dreamer by Liz Huerta. This is a YA fantasy inspired by ancient Mesoamerica. Gripping debut introduces us to a lineage of seers defiantly resisting the shifting patriarchal state that would see them destroyed. Our main character, Indira, is a dreamer. She's descended from a long line of seers able to see beyond reality. She carries this rare gift of dreaming truth, but when the beloved king dies, his son has no respect for this time-honored tradition, and he wants the opportunity to bring the dreamers to a permanent end. And then we have another main character, Seiya, who's a seer but not a dreamer. She's never been formally trained, and her mother exploits her daughter's gift, passing it off as her own as they travel from village to village. She feels like she is running from something, and in a string of events she feels like her power is bigger, and there's a lot of secrets hidden between her family and herself in her past that she needs to unravel. And I'm sure these two different people are going to intersect somehow, and I'm really excited to see how that comes about. Next we have The Book of Living Secrets by Madeline Rue. This is a story that follows two girls who transport themselves into the world of their favorite book, only to encounter a sinister alternate reality that awaits them. Which, guys, whose dream is it to like live out their favorite fantasy or their favorite book? Like, who wants to be transported into that world? Because that is a dream for a lot of readers. Me, maybe not necessarily, but the premise just sounds so fascinating and such a great topic and aspect of the reader world. Like, what would happen if you got transported into a book? And I'm so excited to see that play out on page. And the last book for March 1st is Gallant by V.E. Schwab, who I am forever excited about the premise of her stories. I remember this being penned as somewhat of a kind of gothic story with a lot of elements from like The Secret Garden, which sounds very interesting, and so I'm really excited to see how that would play out on page. Our main character, Olivia Pryor, has grown up in Maryland's School for Girls. All she has of her past is her mother's journal. And then a letter invites Olivia to come home to Gallant. And while there, she finds out that nobody's expecting her. That summon for her was kind of just poofed out of thin air. And so none of her extended family is very welcoming for her. And it doesn't even help matters that she seems half-formed ghouls haunting the hallways. So she's determined to stay, unravel Gallant's hidden secrets, maybe unlocking the story of her past and her mother's past. We have 4 books set to release on March 8th. The first for March 8th is All That's Left in the World by Eric J. Brown. This is a debut, queer, post-apocalyptic, adventure, romance YA story, and essentially we have civilization that has been wiped out mostly by a deadly pathogen, so everyone's kind of in these secluded communities, and Andrew stumbles upon Jamie. He's injured, starved, and has nothing left to lose, and basically these two are seeking each other's help to journey to a safe civilization, at least a rumored safe civilization south. It's gonna open up a lot of things, a lot of secrets between the two, and whether or not somebody's lying about said civilization. The next book is also a debut called One for All by Lily Lanecroft. This book is a gender-bent retelling of the Three Musketeers, and our main character has a chronic illness called POTS. I don't know a lot about this illness. I do know that my cousin has it, and he gets sick very frequently. He had to get a kidney transplant. So it's going to be very interesting to see that play out on page. Basically, our main character, Tanya, is constantly sick all the time. Her mom wants to marry her off to give her security, but she does not want that life. And so she trains to be a fencer, and then as her father is murdered, his dying wish is to have her enroll in like a fencing academy meant as like a musketeer, so she can become a musketeer in France. And then she succeeds in doing so, and she's on her first mission, her first to quell an assassination attempt, and she meets a bad boy and things might get spicy. And it doesn't help that this guy that she meets also might have information on who killed her father, so the plot always thickens. Next is A Far Wilder Magic by Allison Saft. This book has two characters pulled together to try and slay the legendary Hala, which is the last living mythical creature in this fantasy world. And this is all will take place in the Half Moon Hunt. First we have Margaret Welty. She's the best sharpshooter in town, but you have to be in a team to register, so she needs to find an alchemist. Lo and behold, Weston Winters is the said alchemist who will hopefully team up with her. He was fired from every apprenticeship he's ever landed, and his last chance hinges on this whole competition and teamship with Margaret Welty, and that just sounds like mayhem and romance and all sorts of things that could go wrong. The last book for March 8th is Blood Scion by Deborah Fillet. And like the title suggests, our main character, 15-year-old Sloane, is a Scion, which means that she can incinerate anyone at will. And this is very bad in this realm because under the current leader and the current rule of the realm, this power can lead to instant death if discovered. She's forcibly conscripted to join the army, and she feels like this is the perfect opportunity for her to infiltrate the military, infiltrate the government, end the corrupt rulership and leadership, and in doing so, she might turn into the very monster that she abhors, that she doesn't want to be. We have two books set for March 15th. First, we have The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. This book is set to be a true crime blogger getting more than she bargained for while interviewing a woman acquitted of 2 cold case slayings. So this seems like a dual time period book where we have 1977 in Clear Lake, Oregon, where the lady killer murders occurs. We have 2 men, seemingly random, were murdered with the same gun. Strange notes were left behind. And the perfect suspect was Beth Greer, as she was seen fleeing from one of the crimes, but she was acquitted, and she retreated to isolation in her mansion. Fast forward to 2017, 40 years into the future, Shay Collins is a receptionist, but by night she runs a true crime website called The Book of Cold Cases. This is a passion of hers, fueled when she fled from an attempted abduction as a child, and she meets Beth Greer by chance, asks her for an interview, and she heads up to this mansion and whole things happen. And then we have The Cartographers by Pink Shepherd. Pink Shepherd is the author of The Book of M, which is one of my favorite stories that I've probably ever read. The Cartographers is a highly imaginative thriller about a young woman who discovers that a strange map in her deceased father's belongings holds an incredible, deadly secret, one that will lead her onto an extraordinary adventure and to the truth about her family's dark history. It seems like it weaves art, science, history, and magic into the fascinating field of cartography or map making. We have one book set for oh, that's May. It looks like it got pushed back. My bad, y'all. The next book was slated for March 17th, but it's been pushed back to May 17th. So scratch that. Instead of 23 books, it's 22 books, and I'll have to talk about that book come May. So we have 2 books slated for March 22nd. First, we have The Bone Orchard by Sarah A. Mueller. This book sounds very interesting. Our main character, Charm, is a witch. She's the last of a line of conquered necromantic workers, now confined within the yard of regrown bone trees at Orchard House. So Charm is a prisoner and survivor. She is a mistress to the Emperor, and she's basically trapped there. She's unable to leave or to be anyone else. However, the Emperor summons her to find out who his murderer is on his deathbed. And if she can figure out who is responsible for his murder, she gains her freedom. The next story is A Million Quiet Revolutions by Robin Gao. This book sounds beautiful, and it has 2 main characters, Aaron and Oliver. They've only ever had each other in this small town with few queer teenagers, let alone young trans men. They've shared milestones. They've been very, very close in their relationship together. But just as they get so close and their relationship blossoms into something beautiful, Aaron ends up moving away, and they feel adrift and separated. And so they seek solace in digging deep into America's past, and in doing so they discover 2 Revolutionary War soldiers who are believed to have been trans men in love. The remaining 6 stories are all slated to be released on March 29th. First up is The Resting Place. This is by Camilla Sten in translation with Alexandra Fleming. And this is a very interesting thriller story because our main character, Eleanor, has a medical term called prosopagnosia, which is very interesting. I remember learning about this in psychology. Essentially, there's different degrees of it, and this is what most people know as face blindness, and so they have the inability to recognize a familiar person's face, even the face of those closest to them. So Eleanor actually walks in to the murder of her grandmother, Vivienne. So she comes face to face with the killer. However, she has prosopagnosia, and so she has no idea who actually did the killing. So Eleanor feels very on edge by the whole situation, and she always feels like she has to watch her back. But then her grandmother leaves her with the family house, the estate is tucked in, everything kind of feels sinister, and all the secrets of the house. Eleanor really feels like maybe these truths are too much for her. She might wish that these truths never came to light. The next story is The Diamond Eye by Kate Quinn. This is another World War II tale inspired by the true story of the deadliest female sniper in World War II, who's also a quiet bookworm. This female sniper is Russian, so it is on the Russian side of World War II. This is mainly about Mila Palenchenko's story growing to become the sniper, and then still dealing with her war trauma, going to isolated and lonely life in Washington, D.C. The next book is a debut called My Dearest Darkest by Kayla Cottingham. This is set to be a sapphic horror where our main character, Finch Chamberlain, is a newest transfer student to the ultra-competitive Ulaloom Academy, but she's also not what she seems. Months before school started, Finch and her parents got into an accident that should have left her dead at the bottom of a river, but something monstrous and ancient and terrifying wouldn't let her drown. Finch doesn't know why she woke up after her heart stopped, but since dying she felt a constant pull from the school and the surrounding town of Rainwater, like something on the island is calling to her. So that's one storyline. Then we have another storyline of Selena St. Clair, who sees right through Finch, and she knows something is seriously wrong with her. But despite Selena's suspicion, she feels drawn to Finch and has a sinking feeling that from now on the two will be inexplicably linked to one another. It sounds like a potential like rivals to romance, or maybe hate to romance. We'll see what happens. And the plot thickens because one night Finch, Selena, and her friends accidentally summon a carnivorous creature of immense power in the depths of the school. It promises to grant every desire the girls have kept locked away in their insecure hearts: beauty, power, adoration, in exchange for a price: human body parts. But as the cost of their wanting becomes more deadly, Finch and Selena must learn to work together to stop the horror they unleashed before it consumes the entire island. This next story is So This Is Ever After by F.T. Lukens. It is an Arthurian legend retelling where the ultimate question is what happens after the chosen one wins the kingdom and has to get married to keep it and to stay alive. So we have our main character Eric, who is the one completing the prophecy to save the kingdom of air from the evil ruler, and he finally manages it somewhat clumsily by beheading the evil king. In doing so, he's kind of at a loss until his best friend and mage Matt convinces him to assume the throne until the true heir can be rescued from her tower, except the true heir is now dead and Eric is stuck as king. However, the magical catch of being king is you have to choose a spouse by your 18th birthday or you wither away into nothing. As luck has it, his 18th birthday is only 3 months away, and now Eric is on a desperate bid to find a spouse, and he goes about it hilariously wrong, and it seems like a really unfortunate, comical mad dash to stay alive and find a spouse. Next we have Message Not Found by Dante Medema. This book centers around two best friends, Bailey and Vanessa, where one night Bailey and Vanessa get into a grueling car accident that takes Vanessa's life, leaving Bailey alone to grieve, but she cannot handle her grief in quite the way other people would, so she ends up creating a chat bot of Vanessa, bringing years worth of their shared text messages and emails, and in this culmination of files, the bot reveals maybe some striking truths or hidden secrets of Vanessa that Bailey never would have realized, and that really throws Bailey's entire grief process and perception of Vanessa through the ringer and through a different loop entirely. And I'm very intrigued about what that is and what Bailey is going to do with this striking and different information. And the last book set to release on March 29th, the last book debut for March that I am anticipatedly waiting for, is called A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lynn. This is a debut fantasy novel series, and both books in this duology are set to release this year, with this first book set in March and its sequel is set to release in, I believe, August. So that'll be very interesting and fascinating to see if that actually does happen. But essentially our main character, Ning, is thrown into this competition. She accidentally brewed a poisonous tea that ended up killing her mom and is now threatening to take her sister's life. So she travels to the Imperial City and chooses to compete in the kingdom's greatest Shinongshi, which is the master of the ancient magical art of tea making. And if she can win the competition, become this tea master, she will win a favor from the princess, and Ning believes this is the only chance to save her sister's life. So there we have it. We have 22 books set to release in March, pending actual publication dates, and if they've changed, that I am excited for. I can't wait to find out more about them, and I hope you maybe have set your eyes on a book, or at least have encountered a book you haven't heard about through this video. And in doing so, I extend the same courtesy to you. Please let me know in the comments down below what is a book you are most excited about that will be released, expected to be released in March of this year, next month, March 2022. Please let me know. Drop it in the comments below. And until next time, know that I love you. Bye!